keep humans from being harmed by something. So this has nothing to do with the environmental impact.
No, so none of this is environmental impact. So this focuses specifically on the plant itself, not any of the consequences. So even though it's, you know, safe and you could eat as much of the pesticide-resistant corn as you could possibly want, probably, and not have any harm whatsoever that you wouldn't have from gorging yourself on regular corn.
So you said this is not required. This is being done, but it's not.
It's not absolutely required. It's not a law that you have to go through the FDA, but every single GMO that has hit the market has gone through it, and every single person or company that's been trying to make one, because some of these are universities and some of them are companies that go through the FDA, every single one of them has complied so far.
About what you said, I was wondering, is it actually feasible to check all the molecular composition of a GMO compared to the native? Is it? Yeah. Like every metabolic pathway?
Yeah.
That's
analyzing samples.
Run it on a chip?
There's very fast. High throughput technology, like super fast. It's computers that like put in samples and then just pick it apart at the atomic level, it's like exactly what you have.
That's really,
We're talking every single molecule.
Yeah. That's what our companies do too. Like thalidomide, thalidomide, the bad form and the good form are the same thing. It's just a chimeric difference. It's a difference in the structure. We can tell the chemical structure of it and figure out whether there's a component of it that may be harmful to humans. That's been proven previously to be harmful to humans. But yeah, like checking that out is totally possible.
There's something called the metabolome, where you look at every small molecule.
Yeah, but to analyze the whole, every single molecule and the whole metabolome.
Yes, that's what the metabolome means.
Every
single
So
small
That's
molecule.
been studied so far, but yeah, it's a pretty broad.
Yeah, there's metabolomics, there's proteomics, there's genomics.
Yeah.
You can see if the genome has changed, you can see if the protein expression has changed. This is all mass spectroscopy, high resolution, high throughput stuff this is what's been happening in the past, I don't know, 10 or 15 years.
It's the exact same reason why you trust your drug supply or your food supply in general, that like you can test to a pretty fine degree the chemical composition of anything that we're ingesting, and we do.
What is the technology used for that? Is that spectroscopy or?
Like mainly mass spec.
Yeah.
It depends on what. I mean, there's chip-based technologies for genomics. I mean, you can sequence the entire genome of the plant.
Yeah.
I mean, the Beijing Genomics Center is sequencing multiple human genomes a day. I mean, the technology is now to the point where with nanopore, there's something the size of a flash drive.
Okay.
And you can get a sequence of an organism in a day.
Is it about $1,000 genome now? About, but the nanopore is like 2 air room, but just
that's technical details. It'll get there.
Yeah.
We're actually getting a minion.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
All right, we can talk later.
Bottom line, science is really good now. And we can really run a fine-tooth comb over all of this stuff and be able to find anything that's wrong with the plant itself. But that's where the FDA kind of stops, making sure that the plant itself is completely fine. But there are consequences of certain kinds of GMOs that are less than desirable, and these three are examples. We've got soybeans, corn, and cotton, and these are genetically modified to be either pesticide or herbicide resistant, sometimes both. What that enables you to do as a farmer is to just spray a ton. And the confusion here usually comes from things being GMOs and things being organic. And they're usually kind of smooshed together into like organic, non-GMO, when really they refer to pretty different things. So organic refers to soil conditions. So it's whether the soil has been, sprayed with pesticides or sprayed with herbicides or any other kind of chemical killing agent. And GMO refers specifically to the plant itself. Has it been genetically modified? So in theory, if you grow our golden rice in a place that has great soil that's never been sprayed with anything, you could have an organic GMO. And it explains my position, and I'm pro-GMO. I like the technology. I think sometimes it can really help us out of some sticky situations that either we put ourselves in or nature put us in with viruses, but not into this. So, yeah, I think that's a big confusion out there. The only articles that you really find are all about these kind of GMOs. It's nothing really ever about the golden rice or the other kinds of things that are going on that are really helpful that have nothing to do with polluting the environment. Yeah, that's it.
Have there been any issues found where whatever protein was now being made is, I mean, if these are plants, could it ever be that whatever was added or deleted is depleting the soil's nutrients?
I don't know. I mean, I'm reluctant to say that it could never happen, but I feel like it'd be hard to do. Yeah.
I feel like there's an opposite case that hasn't really been touched on in this lecture, which is where you like genetically modify something to be more drought tolerant.
Yeah.
So you actually draw out like less groundwater, you can actually like need less irrigation, which like nobody likes pesticides, I think it's great, but like also groundwater is a limited resource that you can engineer something shorter, have like tendencies like maybe say rice that if it gets flooded periodically can just sprout up, you know, to snorkel.
I get that, but I mean, if you're putting in a new protein, then I mean, the components that go into that protein have to be
Right.
somewhere. And
It has to be empirically tested.
the soil.
Right.
So has there ever been a case?
I feel like it's unlikely because your cells are already making all different kinds of proteins, and the proteins that you're adding in are using the same stuff that all of the other ones are. They're using the same building blocks. It's just you've added a new manual to make a new machine. They're using all the same parts. It's like building a bookshelf from multiple desks that you bought from IKEA. You're using the same kind of parts. So it's unlikely that it would deplete from any one specific thing. Maybe if you were adding like something like hemoglobin in that specifically requires iron, but I don't know if there's anything that we would need that would do that. I mean, it might be considered in the
And
future.
probably that would alter the property of the plant.
And then we wouldn't want it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
What's the science on the correlation between increased GMO usage and increased autoimmune disease in people? Is the body fighting itself because there's these non-normal genes that are...
Well, none of our genes that we're adding are non-normal. So I'm sure you're eating that soil bacteria all the time. So your body is coming into contact with it all the time, and you're eating corn all the time. So the proteins that you're adding into rice, while they're maybe not normally found in rice, they're definitely found in the environment. So there's nothing non-natural about the choices that you can make. It's just where you put them, they're not in a new spot. Yeah.
Well, also, I think it's like, in terms of like isolating sources, I think for most people, one of the problems is that, especially with these examples you would have on the screen right now, the thing is it coming from the GMOs or is it coming from the pesticides that are ending up leaching into like some of the material that you end up ingesting, and how well is that being monitored in contrast to the actual content of the plant itself?
Those are two separate questions.
Very separate things, and how to make sure that you can get the benefits of the one without the negatives of the other.
I just want to jump in here because it's bothering me that you keep lumping pesticides and herbicides together.
Oh, yeah.
So as far as I know, the genetic modifications are to eliminate pesticide use, like the BT gene, not
That's
to make
one.
the plants. There are plants that make them. Why would a plant be harmed by pesticide?
I mean, they make pesticide-resistant ones.
I don't know. Plants
Yeah.
on pesticides, true.
That's
the-
kind
yeah.
of the Monsanto.
Okay, so I was at an international meeting, and a woman from South America got up and showed a slide of a house, you know, in a rural area in her country with children, and a plane going overhead spraying pesticides all over everything. And she said, anyone who does not like genetic engineering, talk to me, because if you can eliminate a plane going overhead and spraying pesticides on our children, it's worth putting in the BT gene.
Oh yeah, BT gene is great.
Right. So there are certain genes, and that's from that bacillus, what is it, thermogenesis? It's the same stuff you buy in the organic store to spray onto your crops. It's genes from that organism. So, let me just finish. So, that in contrast to Roundup Ready, it makes the plants resistant to Roundup, which allows you to dump something on the soil so that it kills only the weeds and not the crops. And that's where that discussion that you were having about other effects might come into play. Sorry.
No, I didn't mean to like interrupt. I just meant that like when you're done. But yeah, like I think that one thing that people don't necessarily like say explicitly is that GMO is a tool. It's like, you know, it sounds awful because that's often used by NRA people. I was going to say nuts, but I won't. to explain something that's very explicitly only used for one cause. But GMOs actually really are a tool. You can use them for all kinds of different things. You can use them to decrease your dependency on water. You could use them to decrease your dependency on pesticides, to confer inherent resistance to pests inside of the plant and not have to douse things with chemicals. Or you could make the plant resistant to you know, herbicide and then douse the area with herbicide. You can use it in lots of different ways. So it's a broad, like, I guess my concern about the discussion is sometimes everything gets painted with the same brush when really you can use that tool to counter the very things that many of us are concerned about, which is like excessive use of herbicide or pesticides.
Yeah, that's the next slide. We end on a positive.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Just slightly different.
Yes.
Are there any plants where they are genetically modified to grow in cold weather or conversely in hot weather or use less water? Are there any practical crop like that?
Oh yeah, I think they're definitely working on that. There's a big market.
No, they are
for that.
working on that. So,
I don't know
so
if there's
far,
any
is there
right
any?
now?
I think they successfully inserted a fish gene into tomatoes so they can grow
Tolerant in cold weather.
Yeah, I
Oh, what?
found mixed
Fish,
results on that.
fish
as to
gene
whether it's
into
Into a tomato.
tomatoes.
tomato. So they can grow where?
But there's work in progress. I don't think there's like anything
There is
established
nothing-
by
nothing.
right now.
Yeah, there's always the
Yeah.
argument that people have been breeding drought-tolerant varieties for years, too.
Yes.
It's just a faster, easier way to
Yeah.
get there.
Why fight with both hands tied behind your back?
Yeah.
Untie your hands.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Is there an economical comparison between producing the golden rice versus, you know, like producing more carrot crops?
I think it's much more economical.
Is it more economical?
It's my understanding that rice is really easy
Plus,
and very
Yeah.
cheap, and then you don't have to ship it anywhere. So then there's the whole no shipping,
So it is,
which
it
is
is more economical.
Oh,
Yeah.
the golden rice isn't meant to sell to make money. It's meant to sell to stave off like people's food shortages and nutrient shortages. It's a humanitarian effort.
And is it, I guess it's
always has to
ingredient, right?
compare, which is
yeah.
What is its
It's
yield?
something
What
that a lot of things.
golden rice yield compared to regular rice?
You can,
What is
you
it?
just
How is
grow
it
your
compared
rice, you
in
say
what
you
way?
grow
In
rice.
terms of
He wants to know the yield, whether or not
Oh,
the crop yield.
I think it's
How
exactly
is the
the same
patent
because
go?
it's not been affected in any.
Why don't we let her get to the rest of the story, because the rest of the story is really interesting.
I
Yeah, there's
Keep going.
there's one that's.
Explicitly trying to release these things to
So these are some great examples. So here's our golden rice that we went through. Over there is an orange that's been viral resistant. So this is what happens when it's infected by the virus. You get these kind of stunted brown sad oranges. And when it's virus resistant, you get a nice looking normal orange. Here's the BT corn example. So there's a particular type of caterpillar that was kind of ravaging all the corn crops. And by introducing this one gene that makes this protein, it specifically affects this caterpillar and all insects, and it makes sure that the corn is no longer destroyed by this caterpillar. And then you've got soybeans. These have been engineered to have more oleic acid. That does two things. One, it makes the oil more shelf stable for a longer time. And secondly, they've been doing some testing on it, and it appears that it might lower your LDL, which is your bad cholesterol. So who doesn't need that kind of help? And then finally, my favorite one that I think a lot of people don't know about. So this is a bacteria and we've given this bacteria the gene to make human insulin. And so this is where all the insulin for diabetics around the world comes from. It's really cheap. It's a great way to go about it. You're going to have no immune reactions because it's human insulin, and now everyone can afford treatment, so that's really excellent. So these are some of my favorite examples of ones that have really good benefits and don't have these kind of consequences that are obvious in certain ways. Yeah, so.
So for the caterpillar-resistant corn, does that mean you can stop putting pesticides on the corn?
Oh yeah. Yeah, so the main pesticide use was to kill this one particular type of caterpillar that was just super into corn. I'm not entirely sure why. So yeah, this really limits pesticide usage because now you can see. I think this came from somebody's paper that they were testing the use of this, and you know.
And what's the ownership on these?
Well, this one was.
No, it's a big. It's, that's.
Yeah, I'm laughing because you're getting to the part that I thought you were going to get to.
Oh yeah, I don't have that actually.
Okay,
I don't have the
like the BT corn. If you grow the BT corn, can you just keep one row of your corn and replant it?
No.
Or will you be?
No. Okay, so this is the deal. So one of the big people mix up Monsanto with GMOs because Monsanto is one of the biggest producers of GMO crops in the world. And Monsanto has an extremely aggressive intellectual property stance. And so they own some of these crops, and they will prosecute you if they find any of these crops growing in your field.
Not just those crops. Any crops that contain any of that genetic material.
But let's talk about these crops. Right?
Okay, that's
Some of these are made by universities. So a lot of the viral resistant one, like the viral resistant papaya that we were talking about, the rainbow papaya, that one was made by the University of Florida.
Those breed true.
And those breed true. And I think they're universities. So, they're publicly available. So
really, as long as you just need to buy one of those rainbow papayas.
I don't know if they're even selling them. I think they're just like, here, take them. We made them for you.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anybody here, if you wanted, let's just say
if you wanted to get the papayas.
You go to the store, you buy a rainbow papaya, you cut it open, you save the seeds, you plant them, boom, you got a papaya patch.
Well, researchers who are
One of the seeds of genetically planted crop, the seeds don't grow as efficiently as the seeds made by the company. For example, soybeans. You take the soybeans buy from Monsanto, plant them, and you harvest them. You save some. I experimented. I planted them in regular soil, same soil. They don't grow as efficiently as unless it is grown in their soil.
But you're talking about a Monsanto seed.
Yeah, Monsanto seed.
These are different projects. Like
I know.
Different kinds of, like there are lots of projects that are actually, people are trying to get to these answers so that they can explicitly make these answers available to the public. And that's part of their goal, and that's part of their stipulation. Anything that the USDA does is explicitly made available to the public as fast as possible. The golden rice scenario, lots of these kinds of cases are people, scientists working very hard for lower pay than they would get in private companies to make things accessible and accessible essentially in perpetuity to humanity.
Right.
And you can engineer in kill switches if you really want to. Like there are certain ones where you don't want it to produce pollen and you don't want it to cross-pollinate with any other crop, and you can do that. That's not what most of these are about. That's a company-specific policy, I guess. I mean, it's a choice that you can make, and it's a choice they could have made with any of these. They just didn't do it.
I guess the reason I brought it up is because the social context of these products is as important as the scientific. And from what I understand, and correct me if anyone knows more about golden rice, actually Natalie Koldell, who's coming next week, knows a lot about golden rice because this is one of the things she teaches in her BioBuilder. And she actually has an exercise called golden bread, where the kids, they work with yeast that's engineered to create beta-carotene, and then they make bread out of it, and they decide whether or not they vote whether or not they would eat it. But the golden rice was, in terms of rolling it out, turned into a complete disaster as far as I know. One of the things that they didn't take into account was culture. And white rice is considered the best, purest, most expensive, high-end rice as opposed to brown or any other color. And when they made it golden, people didn't want to eat it because they felt it wasn't as good as the white rice.
There's
So
a whole New York Times article about that.
there's a
and it's
whole
also
cultural
like
thing around it, and then also that overlaid on it was this uproar of the fact that it was GMO.
Yeah.
And so this invention, which could have saved a lot of lives, has never really been rolled out in a big way, and it's kind of tragic. But it just shows that you have to understand the community that you're trying to help before you help them.
When was golden rice rolled out?
A while ago, right?
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Not,
10 years, 10 years.
maybe like 5 to
years,
10.
10 years?
Yeah.
Probably
it's more
10.
like 10.
I want to say 10.
Yeah.
My question is, how come we're having like debates now, newspaper, TV about the GMO? Like, wasn't it like 1970 they created dwarf wheat, but
That
normal?
What, the
was
triticale?
breeding methods.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
breeding methods, not GMO.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that
But
wasn't
I
in
also think that to your point, like, I'm sorry, I know I'm super interrupting, but I'm here because I'm a scientist and I want to know how to talk to people about this better because I think it's an important topic. And I think that why golden rice and stick, why are we still talking about this now? It's because scientists aren't terribly good at communicating with people, and I think that's like an important gap in the skill set that like has an actual depth hole. Like you can talk about
Not so much as scientists, but I think the government not giving the proper information out to the public.
Maybe.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
misinformation, that's why even with legislation and labeling GMOs, you know,
If you type it into Google, you're
Yeah.
never finding
Yeah.
any of the
There's-
things that I
there's
said.
such a big
Yeah.
misconception
I
about
like
that, but
went through
people-
page after
yeah.
page, nothing.
But I think people think they're doing the right thing, and that's what's dangerous,
Yeah.
right? They don't realize that it's detrimental
Right.
to be misinformed.
Yeah.
And
It's almost better to be ignorant in that sense. It's very strange.
That's a good point. Yeah, what's up?
Going back to the corn.
Yeah.
So this corn is not eaten by the caterpillars and it kills them?
It does kill them,
Okay,
yeah.
now
but-
tell me something.
Yes.
Those toxins that kill the caterpillar don't have any deleterious effect on us?
No, and no other insects. It's incredibly specific. It's very impressive in that way.
Birds. Really gonna be lucky.
There's actually still plenty of this caterpillar. It's not going to kill the caterpillar
Oh,
of
so it doesn't
extinction.
just eat
They were,
corn.
yeah, they don't just eat corn. They were just way overpopulated because they found this new food source. So they were probably even having a terrible effect on their environment just by, you know,
It's not
caterpillar.
so strange that you would have something that is detrimental to one organism and completely harmless to another.
But there's so many
Yeah.
processes in the body. I don't know how they can examine everything. It's one thing to
Yeah, I mean, you're sure given enough time, the corn would fly.
You're holding these things to a higher standard than you're holding prescription drugs when you say stuff like that.
Yeah. All I had was like whatever.
If you follow that argument, you should never take an aspirin. You should never take anything.
Right.
I mean, you can get to the point where you're really just splitting hairs.
I mean, it's.
There really is no evidence to suggest that any genetically modified crop that we've sort of made and used has any detrimental effects to humans ingesting it.
I'm going to do 2 more things and then let you talk to Heart's Content. Well, actually 3 more things. So 1, basic science. It's great. Without basic science, we probably wouldn't know about viruses or bacteria. We wouldn't know about vaccines. We wouldn't have any of this technology. And you might hear people out there say, you know, why are they working with worms and flies? Like, what does that have to do with anything? Well, we've all got DNA, and we've all got protein, and a lot of it is very translatable. Most of what we learn from neuroscience, from development, is all from worms and flies. So tell those naysayers basic science is important. Visit us here. We have great blogs. I'm going to write one about this that you can comment on and abuse me as much as you'd like. Thanks. So this is places that have trained me, places I've volunteered, and they've made me what I am today. And now you can talk to your heart's content because Pesticides. Oh yeah.
Okay.
At which, so the whole beneficiation, at which point does that happen? Is it at the seed point? Is it like when corn is like plant
Yeah,
sprouting?
Yeah, so this is, so you can't change an entire plant all at once. So the best possible thing that you can do is to change the seed and hope that the seed is as few cells as possible. So there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes to be able to change the few cells that you made the way you want to, make sure they're functioning correctly into the entire plant. And that's got its own set of problems, but yeah, you do start with a few cells.
You start with a few cells and you try to make a whole plant, and then you use seeds from that plant to make more of it?
Yeah. So you would go from cells to seed of cell, make a plant, and then it's just easy to keep growing that plant, getting more seeds from that plant.
We've actually done plant tissue culture at Gen Space. That's an exercise. So you can actually have little plant cells growing on agar.
Oh,
pretty cool.
That's cool. Yeah.
I want to ask about time frame it takes from concept. Once you identify the genes to be transplanted into plant, how many crop cycles you have to run to make sure they are everything is expressing basically?
I don't know if there's a certain number that you have to do, and I would imagine it would depend heavily on what kind of plant you're trying to change, what its growing season is, and how long it takes to get seeds from that, and where you're trying to send it. Also, probably the FDA probably has different things that it does compared to different countries.
What about golden rice experience? How many years they spent starting from the concept to? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea. I mean, field trials are trials are actually a typical part of any kind of plant breeding strategy.
Right.
You want to make sure that it's coming out with something palatable, something healthful, and you want to make sure that it's coming out with something in a reliable fashion.
And also not affecting the other plants.
Right. Yeah. So field trials is actually a typical part of any kind of breeding practice, and I think the real thing is that the question sort of is GMO that different from any other kind of agricultural experiment? Where obviously there are different kinds of concerns when you're taking bacterial protein and putting it in that would require you to break it down. But the idea of going through a phase of scaling up field trials through a couple seasons, making sure that it works well in the field, and then breaking down the product of it to make sure that it's healthful and nutritious is a pretty, we do that all the time in science. That's just kind of part of
So basically it takes several years.
I would imagine that it would take I don't know about golden rice, but I would imagine it would take several years.
Also think about it just to scale it up. So you've got, you've engineered one plant.
Right.
Okay. Now how many seeds can that one plant produce?
Right.
And then how many seeds can those seeds produce?
Yeah. Also, what's the spacing? What's the farmer supposed to do for spacing? What kind of soil type does it need? You have to test that stuff out.
It took a long while for the navel orange to really spread around, because and that you can even take cuttings from, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if I live in a place where my villagers and me are affected through blindness, I would be the first to volunteer to say, modify me. Screw the.
That is quite a bold statement. No one could do that to you, because we are obligated to not hurt you.
The point is that the rice gets modified at birth.
Yeah.
So you would have to be modified at birth.
Your kids could have it.
Otherwise,
if you cook it, it might not eat your germline.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, exactly. And you can take reduction to your seminal cells. Hit most of your cells. Those are the last cells that are going to get modified.
From my background is transportation.
Yes.
I'm both of them. And I'm trying to put myself on the skin of people that is highly concerned about GMOs.
Yes.
So you have shown that you need some surprising accidents actually that makes you think, well, GMOs are pretty good. Now there is some things, there's so many possibilities with
Yes, it is unlimited.
Something quickly comes up to my mind, mosquitoes that are modified genetically, so
Rockefeller is
stop the whole population.
Yes.
Yeast producing opioids.
Yes.
I don't know. There's quite a few.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So and actually the technology opens many possibilities, but every single modification also opens.
Yes, there's a lot of consequence.
Now there is very poor communication from the scientific community. There is poor regulation, apparently. I mean, apparently these people.
Yeah, we didn't put it in place before we got it. That's the constant issue. We haven't like thought far enough in advance to make regulation before the thing has become a reality.
Also, scientists are important conveying this, and how politicians supposed to understand how they should or shouldn't regulate this.
Yeah.
And it's just up to Monsanto to basically decide if the people and the scientists don't convey their opinion as well.
And also humans, we are organisms. So I do understand that people have high concerns on GMOs.
Oh
and I
yeah,
think,
it's easily understandable.
I think this sort of events that obviously there's a lot more to be done in regulation, communication.
Yeah, there's a whole big future to be discussed about places science is going and getting people to care about it.
What's interesting is if you do surveys, people don't care about wearing, I mean, we're all wearing GMO cotton.
Oh,
Nobody
yeah.
seems concerned about that. We're all taking GMO medicines. No one's concerned about that. They're only concerned about food.
Yeah. We're just really into it.
Which means there's some primal feeling that somehow the food is going to modify us in some way. And that's actually the thing that has never been shown to happen.
Yeah.
All the other negative connotations of it are present in the cotton as well, but nobody's boycotting genes.
Yes,
So I'm stuck on this corn and these dead caterpillars. And I'm ecosystem without caterpillars. Tomorrow it'll be without mosquitoes. The next day without caterpillars. Bring me home.
Corn wasn't a part of the ecosystem to start with. So how the corn was never a part of TSOte is the original progenitor of corn. We only created corn recently, and we only created monoculture way more recently than that.
The corn on carrot. Let's talk about the caterpillars.
But the caterpillars existed. The caterpillars predated the corn, which means that they must be able to exist without the corn, right?
even more realistic. They're not all going to die.
Yeah.
There's no possible way they're not all going to die. Corn was not their only thing that they were happy about. It was like potato chips to caterpillars.
Yes.
So now they've just got to go
We just make
organic
more
and have some salad. Like they're just not having the processed food.
And they just won't live in that field.
It's
It's a dog
it's
fence
not
that
as
has a
exact.
really
All right.
high shock.
Yeah.
No, I think some of it is like sort of like when I deal with people regarding asbestos. And people have this thing about, it's like, let's say this wall right here was made of solid asbestos. I know a lot of people, I'm just saying, it could be actually. Let's just say though, no, but let's say it is. There is absolutely no danger
Until you take a hammer.
until you bust it up and have all this like particulate matter from the asbestos floating around. A lot of lay people that I deal with, like at work and stuff, you just mentioned asbestos, they're having to freak out like it's radioactive or something.
They put on the gas mask.
No, seriously, it's like I've handled asbestos because it's really useful for certain contexts. As long as it's well sealed in some kind of just like the lightest paint or anything, there is no danger at all from asbestos. It's only when you start busting it up and get it out there. And I think that's this whole thing with the GMOs. It's not like I'm against genetic engineering. I studied this. It's not what I'm into now, but I studied it. But it's like all this other stuff, the social stuff, the way that legislation is modifying so that, like the whole thing with Monsanto. My issue with Monsanto is that there's certain people who have fields next door that were growing not their corn, their pollen drifts into their seeds, they use those seeds, Monsanto comes back next year knowing kind of full well that that pollen is going to permeate their fields and sues them for copyright infringement, which is a legislative issue, it's not a science issue. The same with the yellow corn.
Actually, I went on a recruiting thing for working for Monsanto, and I thought they were super boring corporate structure. So I totally am not into like them as a structure, but I do think that that Monsanto was sort of a mirror image to ourselves in society. That if they're a corporation, they're not touchy feely, they're not into like pats on the back. If we tell them as a society in a communal fashion, like, it's okay to do this, it's not okay to do this. We understand we need you in our society in this fashion, but we don't want to allow you to do this to people in our community, then we can actually lay down the law. We just actually have to act in a coherent fashion and, you know, affect things through democratic change or petitioning.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We work hard enough with our votes to compensate
Yeah,
for all the
Monsanto's never
I mean,
gonna
all
be
the
like,
lobbying.
oh, my bad, I'm so sorry, I feel bad for what I did prior to this. Like, but I think if we work hard in a reasonable fashion, we can say, we value a company for this output, but we don't want you to do X, Y, or Z.
That's like, it's more the legislation.
What stuck out to me about the GMO corn caterpillars is that the caterpillars I thought would be eliminated anyway through pesticides or through that organic bacteria that you would put in the fields. So GMO corn seems to be an advantage in that you don't have to spray those pesticides anymore, which would have been sprayed or else you would have no crop of corn.
Yeah. They were destined for death anyway. We're just killing them somehow differently and then fixing everything else.
Pretty much the general way.
Yeah. Then you have
Seems like it's like equivalent of like pigeons eating bread in the city and then just covering the trash cans so they can't get into it anymore.
I mean, it's also a larger question about organic or not organic.
Yeah.
I'm not saying poor pigeons.
Are these new life forms being kept, even if they are not beneficial for us? I mean,
You mean being kept like in somebody's basement, or what are we talking here?
Well, the question comes from the idea of the post-natural history and keeping all these new organisms, that are being created artificially, and have a collection of them, and museums have a collection of natural history.
I don't know if people are collecting them. It must be easy. I mean, the seeds are.
Isn't there a huge international seed library?
Maybe. I'm not.
Yeah. Those are two separate issues. Like, yeah, there are multiple international seed libraries that usually like try to store things in underground holes, like climates that are naturally occurring, so that we have a record of naturally occurring variety of plants. That's different from. They may also be the same, but the primary goal of most of those places that I know of is to preserve, variety in species and
But I think if these varieties are available, we might find that it's a good idea.
Right, it's possible.
Them as well,
But
because we find that they're useful.
I think more to your question,
organisms.
right, I think more to your question, I've never seen a consistent policy on destruction of GMO crops, because it's not just like crops. Like, I've done basic research where I'll mutate Arabidopsis, or kind of like the mouse. It's actually mouse ear crust, but it's also like the mouse of like a plant biology lab. But you'll mutate that on a regular basis. And I worked in facilities where you're supposed to burn anything that has been mutagenized, but it's not there isn't a across-the-board policy on that. It's possible. I don't have working places where they don't have a policy and you kind of just dump it in the trash with viable seed. Although we're really talking about things that are not. I mean, you're typically like, I was working on floral organ development genes, like checking out what happens when you knock out AGL6. Like, it's not like that's a lot of jargon, but it's not like something very exciting at all. It's like the most boring elementary school book report you've ever written being dumped into the trash that may make another copy of the most boring like elementary school book report you've ever written, and that's about it. It's not likely to be.
I was mainly wondering about the policies of universities like Rockefeller, with every model organisms. You have fruit flies growing in Tennessee in the rice. Are we keeping all of those?
Well, I work on HIV. So everything that I make is already completely non-infectious. I select one protein for HIV and I work with that one. But I mean, everything we have, we immediately make sure that it's non-infectious, and if it is infectious, it's kept very closely. I mean, nothing that it's hard to even get a lab to throw anything out. We're pack rats. So yeah, we're not throwing anything out. And then there are definitely companies like AdGene that'll keep your stuff for you. If you really want like a record of everything that you've got, you can send it to them. They'll keep it. People can buy it. It's a really nice situation.
There isn't any standard policy.
No,
it's
there's
up
nothing
to the
standard.
individual investigator, really, and that's how sometimes you end up with someone suddenly discovering smallpox and
Right.
But that's the way Yeah, I mean, you think of how many thousands of labs there are across this country and how seldom something like that happens. I mean, it's huge national news when it does. So scientists, as a general rule, are pretty responsible.
But I think it's important to point out that storing smallpox in your fridge just casually is not anyone's policy. That's just nothing.
No,
There's no
it's
lab
not.
that's like,
It's not.
way to go, guys.
All right, well, let's thank